All right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. That conversation was still happening even during the break. And now we want to talk about something completely different. Trade and taxation. We'll combine those two. Why is it easier to bring in some goods from other countries, and yet we have that right here? And Dr. Chris, I'll start with you. You even quoted here saying Kenya demands removal of hefty Ugandan taxes. And you're saying that there is need to harmonize taxes to create a level playing field for both countries. So most traders are wondering, right now as it stands, it's easier to bring in eggs from Uganda, and yet we have poultry farmers in Kenya. Is there a need for review of policies so that we buy locally instead of having to bring in most of the things from abroad?
Thank you very much. Remember, Kenya has been a very active member of African countries in regional integration. I think if there's one country that has done well in participating in regional integration initiative, it's Kenya. We are members of EAC, we are members of COMESA, we are members of now what is called Tripartite Free Trade Area, which brings together EAC, COMESA, and SADC. And we were the first country to ratify, together with Ghana, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Yeah. And we have been active because we see our national interest more, especially in Africa. If you look at our trade, since independence, majority of what we sell to the world is to Africa, and particularly to EAC. About 20% of our exports are to EAC. So EAC is a very important market for us. Uganda, in fact, in the last 12 years, since 2011, our share of trade to Uganda is 12%. Their own share of trade to Kenya has been low, but has been increasing. Every country is looking for a mutually beneficial trading relationship. It's not like you want to sell to Uganda only, and Uganda is only buying from you and not selling to us. So I think we must accept one fact, that we are members of a customs union. So being in a customs union, we are bound by a common external tariff, which means all goods coming to East Africa, if it says a raw material, it pays 0. Intermediate good, 10%. And final good, 25%. And we are reviewing that external tariff. But within East Africa, we have, every country has their own domestic policy space to address their issues. So what we have been doing is to try and harmonize that policy space, because if you are like excise duty,
right?
Excise duty you can charge differently. But what we have been trying to do is to harmonize. I think in the case of what is being talked about here, like poultry, you will find that in Uganda, our poultry, the Ugandan law requires that we pay tax. It's vatable.
And Dr. Chris,
and for us, like milk,
right,
our own law is not vatable. So it is just now for us to work on our own domestic law to make it vatable. It's our rule. We have our own policy space. But then, because we want to harmonize, we're in a customs union, we are saying, let's talk. So we have seen cases where countries flout some of the commitments we have. And I think we have raised in this case, although I think the headline looks very alarmist, but really we are not at war with Uganda. Uganda is a key trading partner. We are discussing. We have a good relationship with Uganda. And these issues we are discussing, we discussed them and we agreed. And they gave a roadmap.
And yes. Dr. Chris, I do hear you. The fact that, Kenya belongs to a custom union is very good. But even you have sat there and you've also admitted the fact that perhaps our laws, our domestic laws, may not be as strong as that of Uganda or Tanzania. We've seen what Magufuli has done to make sure that he protects local traders in Tanzania. And Wanjiku might not know about custom unions and what that might do for her. That's a different conversation. But at the end of the day, she wants to be protected by the same government that the way Uganda and Tanzania have come out to protect their own local traders from still within East Africa trade, to make sure that these specific sectors are left for locals. Can the government do more, especially when it comes to law, to make sure that it does protect its Wanjikus, as much as, yes, we are in a custom union?
Yeah, I think the government is doing a lot, and we are actually, what we do bilateral negotiations and regional, where we discuss. Like now, I led a delegation to Uganda. We had a conversation. There is a lot happening which is good, and that is why our trade with Uganda is still high. In fact, there was a time our trade with Uganda was 76 billion. It came down to about 62. We lost our share to that country. Their own exports to Kenya have grown from, I think around 5 billion to last year about 49 billion. They have increased. Now when you look at it, who is demanding the goods from Uganda? It's Kenyans. There are people who are buying. There's demand.
Because it's cheaper.
I think you also need to look at who is it the farmer or the consumer? We have to balance.
And that's the link that we need.
I think that
we also have producers here in this country. The reason people are not buying is because it's cheaper to bring in from Uganda. That means the people we have here are suffering.
But we acknowledge that, and I think that's why you see the policy measures we are taking. We want to cushion our farmers, and we have said we don't want to do retaliatory measures that will not help us. We want to do things that we agree with Uganda.
Can I ask
and I think in this case, for instance, we have agreed in the case like for milk, we have said we will put VAT. When we put VAT, immediately it will raise the price to 18%.
Right.
So that should level the playing field.
And then we'll talk about VAT.
Okay, 1 minute. Joel.
Yes, I want to ask a question. When you look at our trade in the ESC, I know there is the issue of sensitive products, whereby we try to protect the smallholder farmers or the chicken farmers, the maize farmers, the grain farmers. There's a whole list of sensitive products, and these sensitive products attract duties of up to 60%. How is it that as a product listed as a sensitive product is going to come in cheaper than the locally domestic produce? Are there loopholes?
I think I need to correct you.
Yes.
Because you say you're an economist. I believe you also understand how a customs union works. When you talk of sensitive product, it is about sensitive products for EAC.
Yes.
So like dairy products attract 60% duty. If you bring any dairy product into East Africa, you pay 60%. It doesn't mean that applies to a product from Uganda coming to Kenya, because we are in a customs union. So that what you are saying is not applicable in this case. But I want to confirm to you, when we went to Uganda, for instance, in the case of milk, we wanted to know whether there are any imports being imported from abroad to East Africa cheaply. Or I mean, and we saw there is very little. In fact, the biggest import of milk to Kenya is from Uganda. So it's from our neighboring country. So we have to look at other measures other than using issues of sensitive products. But because if we do that, that means we are reneging on our integration. However, we have talked with the Ugandans and they have understood, because we felt there is a surge. It is true, there is a surge. If you look at milk in 2016, we were importing about 20 million kilos. In 2017, it went to 70 million kilos. In 2018, it went to 113 million kilos. For us in economics, it's a surge, if you understand. That surge is too sudden. It can cause damage to domestic industry. And a government cannot just sit. We have to do something about it, which is why we are doing something about it. And I think one of the measures we have taken, and I think it's been accepted, is we use our domestic policy space to address. We can't say no, stop, because they will then stop all the products we are, and Uganda is our leading export destination. We have to exercise restraint,
there has to be a balance,
and we have to operate within the rules. That's why even I asked the press not to use the words like retaliate. We don't like such words in trade. We want to discuss, agree, and that way it brings a good spirit of integration.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to talk about the issue?
Yes, I wanted to add to what Dr. Chris has said. As has mentioned, customs duties are harmonized. There are no gaps in terms of a country charging more on the products within the EAC. The key issue that is being, I want to stress this, is being addressed is harmonization of domestic taxes. The work is already ongoing, specifically for VAT, excise duty, and even income taxes. One of the things that lack of an harmonization of taxes does, it creates harmful tax competition and also leads to market distortions. And this is something that the East African countries have recognized. And some of this, as you have noted, probably the other countries are levying other taxes on imports or exports to Kenya to compete, or even reducing the rates of taxes within the same jurisdiction, so that they have what I would say in the minds could be perceived advantage, which if you look at it from a tax point of view might not be there. At the end of it, when countries start competing for investments by lowering tax rates, we have we call it, they start a race to the bottom. All countries that do that to compete for investment or economic development using taxes, they end up losing. And the East African countries are very clear on this. And I want to assure you that the work is already ongoing. Yes.
Dr. Jim, what do you hear from this conversation? Is there a support for this?
First of all, I think the story is very much more complicated than the simple sort of story we're hearing.
Yeah.
Right? Number one, our rate of tax, our top rate of tax was 35% at a time when it was 30% in Tanzania and Uganda. It's now 30%. We have uniform income tax, really. But you see, you've got to keep in mind that Kenya and Uganda and Tanzania have to compete against, for example, a little country like Mauritius, 2 million people, small island. They produce more sugar than Kenya does. Now, Mumias is a company which was destroyed by one man. That's why I didn't vote for him. One man destroyed that company. And we see the same in KPCU. You have, now it's very easy to say the government. The government is you and it's me. And don't forget, a person in government is not the government, it's that person. And I think it's very, very important here that we pin personal responsibility on individuals, which we're not doing. How many people are in jail? In Rwanda, we have ministers in jail. We have generals in jail. Here in Kenya, go to Kamiti, you have the Wananchi Watukufu in jail. That's who we have in jail in Kenya. We don't have big people. And yet, they are guilty of destroying. For example, we used to be one of the world's major exporters of pyrethrum. Today, we produce nothing almost. Why? Because the people, again, you can say, the government took it over. No, those individuals who went to the pyrethrum board, instead of the farmers, it was government officials, but it was those individuals who destroyed the pyrethrum industry for Kenya. France now produces much more pyrethrum than Kenya does. And they got into production of pyrethrum because of the fact that supplies from Kenya were coming down. Why? Because if you don't pay the farmer, he will not produce pyrethrum. He's going to grow maize so he can feed himself. But you see, another major problem, our diaspora are actually making us uncompetitive. They're sending so much currency back to Kenya that our currency is very much stronger than that in Uganda and Tanzania. And the result is that the Kenya shilling, if, for example, you have $1, a dollar will buy you in Kenya possibly 2.5 liters of milk. In Uganda, it will buy you 9 liters. So where is it cheaper to produce milk? In Uganda.
For the same $1, you get 9 liters in Uganda.
In Uganda.
The same $1 that in Kenya gives you 2 liters.
And we're very proud. Our exchange rate is now 100 shillings to the dollar. Pumzika too. We're doing really well. But people don't understand. In economics, you've got this. What does the $1 give you in Kenya, and what does the $1 give you in Uganda? I had a colleague, a friend actually, who went for a burial of a colleague in Busia. And after the burial took place on the Saturday, they decided to go and have a drink that evening. Well, they went across the border into Uganda. I won't tell you how because I don't want to. But anyway, in this case here, they went across the border. Every car outside that bar had a Kenyan number plate. Every single one. And a Tusker in Uganda is 100 shillings, whereas in Kenya it would be 170.
Where it's manufactured.
Where it's manufactured.
So why is that? Why is the irony coming in? How is there a product that is being manufactured in Kenya, owned by a Kenyan, cheaper in Uganda?
Well, you see, this is where we've got to talk to the economists and ask, for an explanation, because
Joy, do you want to come in?
Yes. I'd love to come in, but even as I come in, probably on that one, I'd like to politely and gently insist to my peers here that regional integration is not a first best. It's not a first best in terms of trade. First best in terms of the technical perspective. First best, but by the first best theory, it's about free trade, right? Regional integration is a second best. As in, we cannot have free. We agree that we cannot have free trade, as in bring in what you have, but we can trade in more favorable terms, and we must have restraint amongst ourselves.
Now,
so saying that eggs are coming from Uganda because they have to bring it free, no, it should not be like that. We should be able to protect what is important to us, even if we are regionally integrated, because it allows us that room. But next, into terms of why is it cheaper to produce milk in Uganda? Yes, the cost of production, I agree. But when I look at the shilling in Kenya, we have more interests in a well-managed shilling than a free float shilling. Can you imagine the kind of debt that we are servicing if the shilling were to go haywire? We are likely to sink as a country. So I think managing the shilling, creating a balance between a favorable, not completely hurting our exports completely, and also allowing the government some fiscal space to deal with the issues that we have, I think is quite in order. I wouldn't prefer an extremely weak shilling.
Okay. So, Dr. Chris, usually when we have these business conversations, sometimes we get accused that we are very technical. So let's bring it down to the kawaida mwananchi.
Yes.
The president last year admitted that the government had failed the SME sector by his own admission. He said we have failed the SME sector. As the PS of trade, what would you say has changed now?
Well, a lot has changed. I must say the issue of SME cuts across government. It is not. We have some things we do in our State Department.
Yeah.
Our sister Department of Industry does some things, but across the government, there's a lot we are doing. I think there is so much we have done, but a lot more remains to be done. And first, if you look at the issue of SME, access to credit, because the biggest problem has been money. And most of the SMEs, their credit worthiness is low, or they're high-risk borrowers.
Yeah.
So when they go to the banks will that complex requirement of the applications, they will be subjected, and then they will not be given money. So we have said one way to address this is to come up with credit guarantee schemes. So through Treasury, we have set up a fund, and they're now working on regulations so that banks can have comfort. If when Jiku goes to borrow money, the bank doesn't have to be very stringent in the requirements. And by that, Kwanjiku has to work hard to make sure she repays. But in the event that she doesn't repay, then at least we can have this guarantee scheme dealing with it. We think that is a good step to address the matter. The other issue is also on recently you had banks. There were the Central Bank of Kenya working with 5 banks, which is Commercial Bank of Africa, NIC, Cooperative Bank, KCB, and DTB, the Diamond Trust Bank. They came up with this what you call online application of loans, and as one way of trying to address and make it easy for SMEs to work on. In the Ministry of Industry, the State Department of Industry, there is an institution called MSEA, Micro Small Enterprise Authority, which is also doing a lot. There's a fund that has been at least approved by Cabinet. It is now being operationalized, and it is going to be used for purpose of lending to SMEs. And the same MCA also is setting up what we call constituency industrial development centers, CIDCs, and we have 158 so far, which are across the country. And also we have what we call work sites, 400 work sites for SMEs. And there we try to support the SMEs by giving them what we call common user facility. Give them equipment and other things that they require. And then this is one way of trying to help them. And we expect county governments to do the same. But this is what the national government is doing. We have training, there's much more. But I think also the challenge has been on the fact that if they were formal, a lot of them, it would be easy even for them to access credit, which is why I think when we come to the issue of taxation, I think I'll have a point to say also about that issue of presumptive tax, which has been raised.
In fact, that's what we're going to come back to after the break. The turnover tax, we'd like to hear from Ore. What exactly does that mean? And is it true that you will be taxed whether you're making a profit or a loss? Is it just based on turnover, as the word suggests? That right after the break. We'd also like to hear from you as well. What is your experience as a trader out there? 22422 is the SMS line. Just tell us your name and where you're texting from. You can also tweet in at Citizen TV Kenya, Trevor Mbidi at Zinzi _K. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We'll be back in just a bit.